Stu, I don't know what I was going to do if you did not return from Florida.
You would have had a decent life.
No, that's not true. You balance me. You are the wind beneath my wings.
I am a positivity guide.
I have been in a funk. I wanted to throw myself out of the window.
Yeah, I know. I was doing some of that on the ground floor in Florida when I kept reading about the chaos and the agony going on as the Trump wagon starts to roll along.
You know what? I mean, we can talk about that soon, but the only thing I'm going to know, the backlash to the bad behavior is already percolating. And what these morons don't realize is they had an opportunity, or they still have an opportunity, to make changes that might be productive. Yeah. But unfortunately, they're so personally defective, they're really not capable of that. And I have never, I mean, yeah, we're going to talk about but we're going to start on a happy note.
Don't we?
Because I know Stu has been away. He's been gallivanting in Florida. He is, obviously a bon vivant.
No, he's not. Every once in a while he gets away. But I thought, knowing all the agony that's going on and that you'll get to, and I thought maybe I'd just introduce a couple of slightly more upbeat notes, just as a balance today. But trust me, I've got so many things that I feel bitter about that on another day I'll get back to them.
You're in the right place. I'm here for you because I'm as bitter as they come.
In this case, I'm going to tell you that this is about some birds. I was down in Florida, and those birds are all around, and I've become really interested over the years, though I'm not a great bird watcher, but I'm not a successful bird watcher. But in this case, some really interesting stuff occurred. And I'll give you three examples. On a golf course in Melbourne Beach, which is on the East Coast. It's not a trendy place. It's not the kind of place David would go to. It's a low-key kind of spot.
Oh, bullshit. I have a funny feeling you are out living the life of Riley.
No. So I'm on a golf course in Melbourne Beach, and we pass a patch of white pelicans on a little pond on the course. And these birds, I don't know that many people have seen this, but they do forage or go after fish cooperatively. And so there's constantly they're in this one pond, and 8 or 10 of them were around, and they get into a circle, a wide circle. And then somehow they move forward as if they're the Rockettes. They move forward gradually, gracefully to a much smaller circle. And then all of a sudden, their heads all go down together, their butts go up, and they're fishing. And so the butts up, and it looks like synchronized swimming. Now, I don't know the results of it when it occurred this time when I watched it, but it's really fascinating to watch how cooperatively these birds work. Okay, fast forward, maybe a half hour. I'm on the same golf course, later hole, same pond. There are some cormorants on the pond. Now, they're black birds, and they've got long, curved beaks, and they fish. That's what they like to do. They eat fish. So one of them is in the water, and he's flapping his wings aggressively onto the body of the water. Now, he's not doing this dry your wings out like cormorants do and hingas do sometimes, because their wings aren't as waterproof as those of other birds. And so they have to keep them out in the air. But this guy was flapping them vociferously along the water, onto the water. And I wondered what the hell that was about. I don't have an answer. I just have a theory that they don't waste their time and energy on nothing. I'm saying that he was probably attracting fish somehow. Either maybe even made himself look like something that was prey itself that was in distress. But I thought that was fascinating. And then this one is the most dramatic of the three. Same golf course, same hole as the water flapping cormorant, and there's a white pelican sitting in the water. The pelicans in the U.S. are usually either of the white variety or the brown variety. And these guys, they have large spans, maybe 4.5, 5 feet. And so there's this white pelican sitting calmly in the water. And then a number of cormorants are in the area. They usually live comfortably together on the pond. Well, one of the cormorants comes rather close, I would say within 4 feet or 3 feet of the pelican. Doesn't look like he's not touching him. He's not being an aggressor, but there he is, just rather close. And all of a sudden, the pelican grabs the cormorant by the body or the neck. I couldn't tell which. He grabs him with his beak, and suddenly the cormorant is under the water. I'm saying, I've never seen anything like this before. And then, though, all of a sudden, the cormorant's on the top of the water, and the pelican releases him. And my theory on this one is, I'd never seen it before. I don't know how many people have it. I suppose it's not uncommon, but I've never heard of it or seen it. I think the pelican was just saying, look, buddy, I'm in my own quiet space, perhaps my own fishing hole, waiting for something to happen, and get your ass out of here. That's what I attribute that to.
Is that what you did?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay. I got so many things.
No, wait, I got one more. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that I also used on this trip the Merlin app, which is a Cornell University-based app that you can get for free for sound recordings. And I won't go into that on this day, but I had a spectacular morning, early one morning, listening to birds on that app. And you can use it very simply by just pushing a button and it records. And then it brings up the name of the bird that they think is the candidate for that sound. And you can also do it with photos, but it's hard to get close to birds without them. They're flying away. That's about it. I want to go back to your comments and let you.
I'm like a little flabbergasted here and a little like, have you lost your mind? Most people go to Florida. Like when I go to Florida, I have a good time. I go to the beach. I go out at night. I come home with an STD. What? And you're sitting around a golf course staring at beer.
Didn't sit around. I was golfing.
I was at a golf course looking at birds.
Well, you can't help it. That's the bird life is there. No, you don't and disrupt the round.
What's the moral of your story? I see
it's just the nice
glory of nature.
Yeah, I think so. I wasn't trying to make that point, but it is that point that I think birds are essential. They're also indicators of what's going on. And don't get me started on the Environmental Protection Agency, which isn't going to be doing its job now. But it's a wonderful part of life. And if you get that app and you start listening to sounds, no matter where you live, no matter what area of the country you're in or where your locale, there's bird life, and you can listen to it, you can see it, and you can help it in different ways through different organizations and on your own. And I think they're a wonderful part of our existence.
Did you at least do any dancing while you were in Florida?
Oh, I don't dance, but I ate well. I drank well with friends. And that's what we did. We ate, drank, golfing. No, they didn't watch. These guys don't watch birds.
No, they probably think you're nuts too.
But possibly so.
But I'm glad you took some. It's like the simple pleasures of life. That's what it kind of described me. Well, unfortunately, it's hard to appreciate the simple pleasures of life.
Yeah.
Because we're now a month into this administration, and what we're seeing is not exactly positive. Let's first talk about Ukraine. Now, Trump is absolutely correct about one thing. This quagmire needs to end. You can't just keep shoveling money and keeping it at a stalemate or, with all this killing and all the rest. It's going nowhere. It's not. I mean, basically, Biden was doing nothing. He was allowing this to happen. And truthfully, we never put our own troops there, but there's been a lot of killing, and it's disruptive to the entire European continent. Sure. So what do we have? We have a cabinet filled of some of whom are not bad, but some of whom are highly unqualified jokes. One of whom we've discussed, which is the skirt-chasing Fox News commentator who thumps the Bible while impregnating every woman he can get his hands on. He's got 7 kids and cheats on his wife and has been married 3 times. Now, we all knew someone who's on Fox News doing chin-ups with his colleagues is not someone who should be running the Defense Department. He did have a strong academic background, but I don't think being a drunk and a sexual assaulter is really a qualification to be running one of the more sophisticated military.
And not an accomplished manager or senior.
No, but he believes in God.
Yeah,
he's a Christian.
That's going to do it.
A Christian who cheats on his wife and sexually assaults women. Well, he had his first overseas trip while you were away, Stu, and he was out working out with the troops. And I'm like, we do not need our defense secretary proving his machismo with people who could kick his ass anyway. Okay, so that's number one. And number two, he made a complete spectacle of himself because he brought up the Ukraine situation and he basically gave away key negotiation positions before the negotiations even started. He claimed that Ukraine is going to have to give up territory and them joining NATO is a non-starter. Okay. First of all, what, and then in reaction to this in the firestorm, even these weak, spineless Republicans in Congress, Senator Wicker called it a rookie mistake. We don't need a rookie as our defense secretary. We also don't need a drunk or whatever he was on when he made this comment. How stupid could someone be? This is a disgrace and embarrassment. Now, we get back to the
Do you think he was directed to say that by Trump?
I think he let out information he shouldn't have, because from what I understand, they had to backtrack on it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But now
it makes no sense to say those things.
So then we get to the Oval Office with Trump in all his glory. And the first thing he claims is that Ukraine invaded Russia in 2022. It wasn't the other way around. And of course, we all know that's a complete lie. It was Putin who's the aggressor. He then went on to call Zelensky a dictator, even though he was democratically elected with an approval rate with more than 50% of the vote, something Trump can't even claim. And the reason a matter of fact, he was claiming also that because they have declared martial law in Ukraine because of the war that Russia asserted, that, the guy is a dictator because there hasn't been an election yet. Okay. But
this guy came out of nowhere. Yes, he was is an actor. He came out of nowhere to lead a country in turmoil and in desperate shape, and has proved himself to be a great leader.
I would say I'm not so sure, to be quite honest with you. I don't know enough about him. He comes off to me as a little clownish, and I'm sure he's unreasonable also, and he's like a militant. And he's probably not being cooperative, which might explain why Trump is pissed. But that's all. Any smart diplomat, anyone who's bringing about closing a deal, would know to keep all that stuff quiet. But Trump is so unhinged, he doesn't know what to say. He also went on to say that America gave them $350 billion and that funds were missing. That's also a lie. Apparently, we only gave them $120 billion. And he also claimed we gave more than Europe and that Europe had loans that would be paid back. Also not true. Europe actually gave more money than we did, $130 billion.
The man is a liar. He's proved that. He can't help himself. I think he revels in the act, and it won't stop.
I mean, a shameless, buffoonish liar, may I add, because all this stuff can be looked up. I looked it up. And then also, he had Macron, the French president, in the White House, and he was going off about the loan crap again. And Macron fact-checked him rather politely, but basically said, these are grants, they aren't loans, they're not to be paid back. So this whole notion that we have been ripped off by Ukraine just simply is not true. I am really confused about the whole Putin thing. I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, I understand bringing about a closure of this situation because simply, Biden pulled us out of Afghanistan.
Never to be forgotten.
Because it was a quagmire
in which you did it.
And it was a disaster.
Yes.
But he was right. We were right to get out of there. Then he brought us into Ukraine and put us in a very similar situation, except we didn't have troops on the ground. Just a prolonged bloody conflict that wasn't going to, with no end in sight. Apparently, from what I understand, Biden made no effort to bring about a diplomatic solution to this. He was too busy on the beach, half alive, while the Democrats pretended he was cognizant. But at the end of the day, the Trump behaved, they're claiming there's going to be a deal on Ukraine. We'll see how that turns out. And maybe that's true, but this isn't the way to do it. And more importantly, when Trump was campaigning, he said this was going to end on day 1.
Oh, yeah.
We're at day 30 at least, and I haven't seen an end to this. So I kind of think Trump is full of shit, okay? I do agree, though. We want to see an end to it. But not with this kind of hyperbole. And these idiots on Fox News are now saying if Trump were to do this, he should get a Nobel Prize.
Oh, God.
I mean, it's bad enough they gave one to Arafat. Do you think they're going to give one to this buffoon? Come on. Now, let's shift to more domestic. The whole Elon Musk thing is getting a lot of heat, right? And as the backlash is beginning, a lot of Republicans went home and they took a lot of flack. A lot of people, why is this South African in our government? We didn't vote for this. I mean, Elon Musk is not American. He is a South African migrant worker. Although, as you noted earlier, Canada is looking to yank his citizenship.
Well, it's just a petition or something.
I know.
It might gain force.
It's kind of funny. But Trump's fascination with Musk is also something I can't really figure out either, because he claims he's a genius, right? And I think in certain respects he's got some extraordinary gifts in terms of his maybe technological expert. A matter of fact, that bizarre T-shirt he works like I'm the tech staff, unprofessionally dressed, may I add. But he has got serious social problems. He is autistic and he has serious social and emotional problems. He's impulsive. He puts all that crap on Twitter. That's all this irrational stuff. So, but
let me tell you this about him, an added feature. His actions are becoming increasingly noticed in the stock market.
I know.
And Tesla.
Yeah.
Because people are worried. First of all, they had great hopes for what he might bring about and get for the Tesla company in China, but those are going to be perhaps subject to tariffs and other things. But just his availability to do the work of Tesla.
I know he isn't even around because he's running around the government like a Mad Hatter. He has no experience running a government. He's not someone you would put in charge of personnel management. I mean, he's a personal nightmare. I mean, Stu, he is the classic example of an idiot savant. He's not as bad as Dustin Hoffman's character in Rain Man, but he's pretty close. Okay. Now, let's talk about some of the crazy things. So Trump has frozen $440 million of foreign aid to South Africa, claiming that the black majority is discriminating against the 5% white minority and taking away their land. These are by the way, it's a 5% white population in South Africa. They were the ones who imposed apartheid and stole the land from the black and native people of South Africa. If anyone should pay reparations to, it is these 5%, frankly.
I thought things had settled down years and years ago.
I think they kind of have this, but this is all, where do you think Trump knows what's going on in South Africa? Where's he getting this from? Go to Musk's tweets. They're claiming that there's discrimination in South Africa against the whites. Now, also, Trump went on to offer South Africa, only white South African refugee status in the U.S., but they don't want it. Okay. They don't want it. Even they have good enough sense to stay where they are. So if things were so bad in South Africa, as Trump and Musk seem to think, I think that they might want to come here. This is just bullshit. And the $440 million, South Africa has a huge HIV transmission rate, and the money is used to prevent it. So, which is better because we live in a global world, no matter how much they like it, but it would be within all our best interests not to have HIV outbreaks because South Africans, like everyone else, travel. But these people are morons. All right. Now the controversy with Musk is getting higher. So while you were away, there was a press conference in the Oval Office where Trump sat at the desk. The 4-year-old son, X, was there at this press conference. Musk comes in and he's wearing a black MAGA hat that Trump signed, a black t-shirt and a black trench coat, like he's out of the Matrix. Okay. And, was spewing out and the kid picked his nose.
Oh no.
And wiped it on the Oval Office desk. Okay. It's completely bizarre. Who shows up to a press conference with a 4-year-old? And if you're going to talk about like personal responsibility. And what kind of parent would allow their child to pick their nose in public without chastising them? And funny enough, okay, this is even funnier. The kid, this got picked up later, told Trump to shush his mouth and that he wasn't the real president.
Oh, no.
This has been all over social media. I mean, and now in the most recent cabinet meeting where Musk showed up to try to calm the nerves of all the cabinet who are pissed off about his antics, he didn't show up with the 4-year-old, which I think after he picked his nose and wiped it on the desk and told Trump got pissed. And apparently they have now taken the desk out of the Oval Office and they were finishing it.
Oh, no.
Now, one of Musk, let's go on to some of the more bizarre antics of this guy. One of his kids, an older child, his name was Xavier, is now Vivian. He became trans, okay? And this is one of the things.
No athletic teams for that bastard.
Apparently
no
not.
Athletic teams.
Well, apparently, Musk blames the woke mind virus for calling his child, for his child becoming a woman or a trans woman or whatever you want to call it.
An attempt.
Right. And he is estranged from the kid and won't accept it. Okay. But isn't the whole premise behind conservatism that we take personal responsibility for our behavior? It wasn't a woke mind virus that brought about this kid becoming a trans. It's bad parenting. And we already see with the 4-year-old picking his nose in the Oval Office, no manners, and speaking rudely to the President of the United States. I mean, I don't know about you, but most parents would have smacked you. Or, nowadays we don't do that, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
So he is obviously unglued and crazy. Now, let's fast forward. He went to a conservative conference, Stu, where it's reported he was high on ketamine. And apparently he also has admitted that he takes hallucinogens. Not, flagrantly. I don't know if he's an RFK Jr. drug addict, but he was wielding an axe. Not an axe, I'm sorry. He was wielding a chainsaw that someone gave him as a symbol of all the government waste he's eliminating.
Oh, I saw a photo of that.
Right. And he was mumbling and flailing around and all the rest. Okay, it was bizarre. Now, a lot of people started mocking him for this behavior and making fun of him because part of his flailing around and weird mannerisms has to do with his autism. So they were kind of mocking someone with disabilities. And the people on Fox News were outraged. They went, oh, crazy. How could you pick on this poor guy because he's disabled, blah, blah, blah. And normally I would think that they had a point, right? But
yes.
Don't you recall when they had the deaf guy talking in sign language and Trump mocked him and ridiculed him? I don't see that anyone really Fox was all that concerned about it. And frankly, I don't think we should be entrusting national security, sensitive information with some of these kind of a drug user,
of course,
with personal problems, serious personal
Although
problems.
I come down on the side of don't mock him if it's clear that there's a medical insufficiency.
Well, he was also on drugs, or supposedly.
I would come on that side.
You generally.
On the other hand, this isn't the kind of person we want in that position.
Speaking of that, at the cabinet meeting this week, where he was once again dressed in the Matrix attire while everyone's wearing a suit, unprofessional, may I add. He was saying, "I'm taking a lot of flack for this. I'm getting death threats." Well, if you communicated like a normal person would and didn't behave your way you did and explained what you were doing and told the truth, people wouldn't hate you and want to kill you.
And no one seemed concerned about Mark Milley when he started getting the death threats because of his being canned.
No, not at all. And let's get to what has Musk actually done besides, pretend that he's cut all this money. Now, first of all, they claim that they have cut $65 billion from the federal government. Now, our annual deficits run at $1.4 trillion, Stu. This is a drop in the bucket, assuming it's even true. Assuming he cuts the federal workforce by 20%, which he hasn't really done, that would only save $80 billion. So this is not even, this is only 10% basically of our deficit. And they're now claiming that they're going to give each taxpayer checks for the savings of $5,000. That alone would be inflationary, and it would cost close to $1 trillion.
When will some Republicans who are conservative fiscally, economically, going to stand up and say that math doesn't work? They won't.
I think they aren't at the moment, Stu. But as the backlash, because I do feel a backlash, it's too early. But I also think that the $65 billion number isn't even accurate. It's more like 18 billion. So for all his nonsense, lawsuits and all the rest, he hasn't really, and by the way, Twitter, where he did similar antics, a private company, not the federal government, may I add, it's still unprofitable despite all this business genius. I think he has a genius for technology. He certainly doesn't have a genius for running a company, let alone the federal government.
Agreed.
But one of the many lies they said about U.S. aid, this is just another example of the kind of nonsense we've had to listen to, which is they were claiming that they sent $50 million to Gaza to give Hamas condoms. Okay? Now, Gaza they were referring to is not the Gaza in the Middle East. It is in Africa. They gave the $50 million and the reason they did, I think it's in Ghana, by the way, and the reason they did this was because of high rates of HIV transmission, and the goal was to cut down. And I know he's a science guy. It is true that if you wear a condom, it prevents STDs and HIV. It's a good way to do it. But this is what happens when you allow an idiot savant to have so much power and control, and it's bizarre and it doesn't make any sense. And so I would have to say, it is true. I think Trump, Musk has some intellectual gifts, but Trump is just an idiot.
We're in a very difficult position here with Trump and the people that he's put into power, if not officially. It's a sad state.
It really is a sad state of affair. I can remember when we had a real president, and his name was Ronald Reagan. I miss him every day. A matter of fact, I think I agree with Trump. Joe Biden was one of the worst presidents we've ever had. But Trump's first term was a disaster. That's why Biden got there in the first place. And Trump, despite all his claims of wanting to save money, he spent like a drunken sailor, just not as much as Biden, but he also contributed to the inflationary spiral, which many economists are now worried about with all this, I agree, flagrant, abuse of government assets. But on that note.
Yes.
Now.
You want another dose of lightness?
That's what you're here for. That's what you're here for.
No, look, I'm troubled by other things, but I just don't want to deal with them today. I'd rather give just another little.
You're on a Florida birdie high.
Well, no, I've come back, and on the way back, I've met in the last few days 3 young people who are on their way upward, positive people around New York City, and I just want to tell you just about each incident. One was in a flight back from Charlotte to LaGuardia, and as I sat waiting to get on a plane, a girl was seated there on the floor. Turns out right next to me, because all the seats were taken, we're waiting. And she says, I look down at her and we start speaking, and she's coming up to New York, and she's just graduating from college in another month or so. She came up to visit her sister. And what is she going to be doing up here? She's going to be working for Bloomberg. And she said she's going to be working in the Bloomberg Tower. I didn't know Bloomberg had a tower. I knew he had a building.
Yeah.
But here she was, this young girl getting out of college. And I said, well, what's your background? And she said, computers. I said, well, that sounds like a good one. And I mentioned in passing that I had graduated with Bloomberg from Johns Hopkins same year.
Really?
I did, yeah.
Did you know
No. Didn't know him down there. Have met him once or twice briefly. He wouldn't remember me. But yeah, he changed the course of a university and probably philanthropy in a broader sense. And I said, you might be able to just tell him that you had when you meet him, you will meet him one day, I said. When you meet him, tell him you were, you chatting with one of his classmates. And he might remember the name, but I said, don't expect that you're going to get oh my God, isn't that wonderful? No. It won't be anything like that. But that was wonderful. And I'd love to see the enthusiasm she had for coming to New York. So here are all these problems we've got in the city, but here she is. She's coming up. And that was exciting. Second lady was on the actual flight back from Charlotte to LaGuardia. I get in my center seat since I have one of the cheap seats. And
I knew did you not take a nonstop flight from Florida?
Oh, absolutely. No, that was done for another reason, because I want to go to Melbourne. I don't want to get left in Orlando.
Oh, okay.
And that's another reason.
Okay.
No, that's the only way you get to Melbourne from New York City or Newark. So I was I get on the plane, I get in my center seat, and already a woman is working on my right. She's on a computer, young lady, typing, oh, by the way, with 10 fingers. And that struck me initially. You don't see much of that going on anymore. But we start talking. What is she? She's a graduate of Wake Forest. She's working at Wake Forest. As she said, she graduated and has never left. She's young, I'd say late 20s. She's working in their athletic department. And we ended up in a conversation about NIL, name, image, likeness, and the financial opportunities for some athletes at schools generally now. But then as it's transferring into, pretty soon, she said, a revenue sharing agreement with athletes. I said, I didn't know that. She said, oh yeah, that's coming up soon. It's in the courts now, and it'll be, a settlement will come. So we had a fascinating conversation, but she was so smart and alert and attractive. And I said, your fingers, I noticed the 10 fingers. She said, yes, I took typing in elementary school. I said, elementary school? I said, yes. I said, we didn't have computers when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I took it in high school. I took typing in high school as a last semester course. And I said, but now that is a smart thing. And and she worked I said, look, I don't remember the numbers, but I suspect you're up at about a 90 or 100 mile an hour, 100 words a minute range. Don't know about the accuracy, but I watched the document she prepared, and it was coherent. I couldn't read the words, but it was organized well. Anyway, exciting young lady coming up in the world. Third, a guy I met who was working in a Levi's sales store on Broadway, and I happened to chat with him, and he's working there as a tailor. And I said, we chat, and he said, I told him that I was an actor-writer, and he said, well, I'm an actor. We chatted, and so now we've established a relationship, and it's the cutest thing. He said, could I email you once in a while to get this and that? I said, you bet. And here he is, this excited guy, newly engaged, and trying to find ways to survive economically, working in a store, and trying to pursue an acting life. And that's not easy to do. Not easy to do. And so I like these young spirits that I met in the last few days. That's it.
First we talk about birds, and then we talk about little chippies, so to speak.
I didn't call them chippies, but they were attractive.
Well, I guess the optimism of youth is the story.
I think you're right.
Well, if it was me, I would crush all their hopes and dreams. Sorry, but just wait. If you think things are good now, they won't be in 5 years. You're going to get fat. You're going to lose your hair. It's all going downhill. And
well, thank you for that info.
And I also have a few remarks. How could anyone of your stature in life be sitting in a middle seat on a plane?
Absolutely. I will not pay extra money for something.
You're a veteran. You should be in an aisle seat.
You know what that kid did with me? Oh, actually, anyway, that kid, when he learned I was a veteran, there was supposed to be a charge for some tailoring because they don't have that
for free.
He said, no, wait a minute. He said, you're a vet. And he said, so you get a 15% discount.
As well you should.
And I just said, well, thank you. He brought that up. It was really sweet of him.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that you were able to get a discount, but I'm disappointed of where you're shopping. I mean,
oh my God,
you should be wearing bespoke outfits.
No, I went upper end, finding that there was a Levi's store downtown on Broadway. That to me is no, I like jeans. You know, look, you can see all these. My current jeans.
I don't even know where to go with that. I didn't know
jeans are my life. Jeans and t-shirts.
I didn't know you were a contractor, but and I hope that young boy, when he gets his $5,000 from Musk and Trump, he's able to use the money to take some acting classes and promote his career. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen, but...
Well, we'll see if this relationship carried on, if my assisting in any way, helping him in one way or another. You never know.
If you want to help, give him a ticket back home. This city's a shithole.
No.
But anyway, I have to say, I'm glad you're back, Stu.
Good.
I'm glad we were able to reconnect and have this uplifting discussion about birdies and tweet, and these young, optimistic people whose lives
are soon to be shattered, you say?
Absolutely. Just like everyone else. And they can become embittered and hateful, as I am.
I don't.
And to be quite honest with you, I've said this to many people, and I'm going to say it again. Hate brings us together more than love. It is a powerful force for good.
I never heard you say that, but I'm not surprised you do.
But anyway, once again, we will resume again next week after you abandon me to my own devices, my own insanity, and we will go from there. And I hope you'll tune in on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon, because we're here and we're crazy. Well, I at least. But anyway, see you next week.
Bye now.